Howdy folks, I'm Colonel Sanders and you're not. I wanted to talk on the reason why I do the content that I do. Now, yes, I could be a little hot-headed sometimes with the haters. Yes, I get a little passionate, or quite passionate over this stuff, and I post a lot about it. But there's a reason behind it as I learn and I go here. And I'm realizing that reason as I'm making this video here. I was originally going to make this into a short, but I had too much to say that would fit into a minute-long video. When I was growing up, I was raised by my grandparents, who knew Colonel Sanders very well. They went to visit. They brought my father and uncle there a few times in the 1970s so that he could at least meet the children. And while my grandpa was growing up, he knew who Colonel Sanders was because, they visit quite often. So growing up with my grandparents, they taught me who Colonel Sanders actually was. If I wasn't raised by them, they would just have what my father and uncle knew, and that would have been my influence. But they would have told me the stories, but my father and uncle don't have the videos and the photos of the family with Colonel Sanders to have been able to pass down to me to show me. It would have to come from my grandparents anyways. So I've been very blessed that my grandparents were able to show and teach me who Colonel Sanders actually was. Otherwise, growing up, I've been like, yeah, the picture of the guy on there is apparently my uncle or something. And I wouldn't have been very proud of it. In the 1990s, I was born in 97, and in the 1990s, Kentucky Fried Chicken ran a campaign of ads of a cartoon of Colonel Sanders, which I thought was kind of funny and cool. And after that, it went silent with Colonel Sanders being the spokesperson. Yeah, they have brand ambassadors here and there, but they're not really doing anything too big to bring Colonel Sanders' story into light in the newer generation. So up until about 2016 or 17, it might have been 2015 actually, Kentucky Fried Chicken had no ads featuring Colonel Sanders. And then they resurrect him from the dead as Darrell Hammond. Well, if my grandparents didn't show me all the stuff that they did, I wouldn't have known that Darrell Hammond's portrayal wasn't anything like Colonel Harlan Sanders and who he actually was. He didn't sound like him. He had kind of a perverted personality to him with the way that he conducted himself and laughed.
Howdy folks, it's me, Colonel Sanders. I've been gone for a while and boy, howdy, have things changed. Nowadays you got your International Space Station, your double-sided tape, your cargo pants. You seen these pants? That's too many pockets. But what you don't always seem to have these days is my Kentucky Fried Chicken. Well, I'm here to change that, folks. I'm here to make sure my chicken's still as tasty and delicious as it ever was. I'm Colonel Sanders. And I'm back, America. I'm back, America! It's still finger-licking good.
Although those ads did poke fun at the history of things, such as the Colonel's Mandolin Band, which was a Christian mandolin band group that Uncle Harley purchased the rights to and bought them all Colonel uniforms to dress as the Colonel and play Christian hymns, which I actually have an album from the JRN location in Corbin, Kentucky, the Sanders Cafe and Museum. There were different little points in history that the marketing team did bring back, but in a new way. And today, my family, like my sister just had her kid, which would be my nephew and the Colonel's first fourth great nephew on his brother's side of the family. And he's going to grow up, and it's going to be up to me and the rest of the family to teach him who Colonel Sanders actually was, what his family legacy is. Because if we don't, the only thing he will have to go by are these newer ads turning the Colonel into a stripper.
Oh, howdy, Mom. I hear you're the best mom in the world. Well, what do you think, Boris?
I love you, Mom. You're a real special lady.
Turning him into a country singer, turning him into this perverted image, turning him into an idiot. Canada has done a really good job at turning his image in the last year into a fool.
2 pieces of seasoned chicken for $2.99 on a Tuesday? How freaking dare they? My 11 herbs and spices, my original recipe. They must be out of their minds. Enjoy. And they're giving it away for $2.99.
With their ad campaigns and how they portray them. Now, recently, this week, they released a better ad that has the same actor that I had a problem with actually respecting the image, which I appreciate that. But my point is, the family gets to know about our family history and our family legacy through the family, because the brand does not display anything that pokes at the history that actually explains it and shows who he is. It doesn't show the family something to be proud of with their legacy. It's kind of erasing it. And if my page didn't exist, the rest of the world, yeah, there'll be some pages here and there that would post the inspiring story of Colonel Sanders. But the rest of the world and the generations growing up get to see the commercials that have been aired. And I get the point. Kentucky Fried Chicken doesn't want their founder's image to be forgotten, but it's also their biggest marketing next to the 11 herbs and spices. So they need to make it more relevant and modernized. Now, I think I could do a really good job at making it modernized and relevant, but that has yet to be discussed. However, if my page wasn't here, like I said, everybody would have to go buy those ads. And unless somebody really wants to dig deep and learn about who he was and everything that's involved, I mean, there's so much interesting things that I didn't even know about until I got into the history of things. How many restaurants are connected? How many different restaurant chains that are out there today that started off franchising Kentucky Fried Chicken? The pressure cooking invention and how it's evolved over the years. There's so much history and interesting little facts that I find fascinating I wouldn't have known if I didn't decide to dig deep and also ask questions to the family that's still alive today to share their stories. Nobody lives forever, and eventually the family that knew Uncle Harley will be gone, and all be left is those of us that the stories were passed down to. And I like to make sure it's remembered accurately on my pages. It's why I get so passionate about this, why I get so upset at some ads, why I get so upset at some haters and people who just aren't grasping the concept of what I'm doing. And I got to work on that. I got to learn from that and move past the getting upset so easily. But it's important to me that it's remembered accurately. It's something to be proud of. This family has to be proud of. The grandchildren, all the nieces and nephews. And a lot of people like to try to associate, well, if you're not a grandchild, then you really have no rights to the legacy. Well, the Colonel's nephew, Lee, had a lot to do, probably more to do with building Kentucky Fried Chicken than his daughters did. And I'm not saying that as an insult. I'm just pointing out the obvious. The Colonel's own nephew had more to do with building the brands up. He went out and recruited franchisees such as Jack Pirtles. He helped build franchises up from the first restaurants from the ground up by hand. And he was the president of Kentucky Fried Chicken. He helped with the marketing of Kentucky Fried Chicken alongside Dave Thomas and Pete Harmon. And it's a nephew, it's not a grandchild. And his family has branched off into several different restaurant chains. They were involved with Captain D's, they were involved with Shoney's, Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken, Pop's Fried Chicken and Catfish, Katie's Restaurant. And Harold Omer, the Lee's brother-in-law, his family has a hot sauce company, which would be pretty cool to have that hot sauce being featured in Kentucky Fried Chickens and Lee's Famous Recipe Chickens. It would. That would be a pretty cool team up. And the Colonel's grandchildren and daughters were involved in the brand as well. Margaret was a franchisee down in Florida. Mildred was in charge of training new franchisees. I actually have a photo at a convention where she was doing just that right here. That is from, let's see, June 6th of the 1960s. So, like things like that. People will remember, like if you Google today Colonel Sanders, a lot of those ads with the actors come up. They don't even show the real guy hardly anymore. And you have to really dig deep to find the stories. And then on top of that, there are rumors among rumors that are spread. And without being checked, without being fact checked, without somebody that cares going out there and looking for the truth and telling it, they go left unchecked, and eventually lies and rumors become truths. And then eventually they'll just completely cancel Colonel Sanders based on complete lies, and that whole legacy will be gone. So I don't want that to happen. Now, through my travels through the country, I have found a lot of communities that are so proud of Colonel Sanders, so proud of Kentucky Fried Chicken. I found so many franchisees that are proud to be working for the brand, proud to be continuing the chicken legacy. They're proud to be working with each other. They treat each other like a family. I've met some great managers, great franchisees, and so like I've learned to appreciate my family legacy more and the brand more through the journey that I've been going on. But like I said, my family and I learned about Colonel Sanders either by knowing him or because we have photos and videos and stories to share about him. The rest of the world, and you may care and you may not care, but the rest of the world does not have all those things unless they had a family member that franchised with the Colonel and they knew him and they had stories to hand down and share as well. In Corbin, Kentucky, that wonderful location, the Sanders Cafe Museum, they told me, Bill Hale, the regional manager there, he told me that they get some new employees that come in and they come into the museum. They're like, wow, he was a real person. We had no idea. And then they get lost in the wonder of the history that is Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it has so much more to do with just making 11 herbs and spices. There was a lot to do with the history. That's why I never run out of things to talk about, because I'm either learning something new every day or I'm teaching somebody something new every day. Now, I don't want to be just known for my family history. I do other things too on my pages. I want to be a streamer. I want to be one of the next big YouTubers. But I also find it very important that the story of my family is heard because it had such a huge impact on American culture. And a lot of you today that work for Kentucky Fried Chicken, including the people I complain about that make the ads that disrespect them, none of you would have a job today if it wasn't for Uncle Harley doing what he did best. None of you would have a job today. Everything that he did leading up to build Kentucky Fried Chicken has led to everybody that works for this wonderful company today. And I say wonderful company because if you don't know about the KFC Foundation, you need to go look them up. They continue the legacy of Colonel Sanders through his charitable works. And they make sure that the employees are taken care of if they need it. Employees are eligible for scholarships, for money in hard times that is needed. There are such great accomplishments and charitable works happening through Kentucky Fried Chicken for their employees and communities. I didn't know that. I was stuck on the sourness of their advertisements and the bad food quality down in Florida where I lived. But after I opened my mind up and I decided I'll talk with them, they talked with me. I've learned so much about them. They learned so much about Uncle Harley and how passionate we are that he is remembered accurately, not as a stripper or an idiot. And unfortunately, every marketing team, they're going to do what they want to do. And that's fine. He sold his likeness back in 1964. He countersued them in the 1970s when they sued him for opening another restaurant. He wanted to see how much of his name and image they actually did own. Well, really, they didn't win that lawsuit. They dropped that lawsuit, settled it actually. They didn't drop it, they settled it and paid him another $1 million. He made a few agreements too, but they also made some agreements to uphold his image accurately and to uphold his quality accurately. So there's just a lot of things. If I didn't do what I do, there would still be rumors going around today that Lee's Famous Recipe is the original recipe. Now, I love my cousins, but they have not been able to get out there as viral as I have about the history of Lee's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, because even Lee's franchises have rumors within the company that they serve the KFC recipe. They don't. So I use my platform not only for the world to see, hey, this rumor isn't true, it's similar recipe, but there's 5 ingredients that they weren't allowed to use in Lee's recipe, and that was determined in 1966 in the court of law. But it's not just for the world to go and fact check. My family now has a resource when I'm gone and dead too. So long as YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all these platforms are still up and running, family, long after I'm gone, will be able to come back to my page, which has documented all the history that I could possibly find of Uncle Harley and this family, not just him, but the family that's involved in the fast food industry, Should any rumors come up, school projects come up, confusion come up, somebody wants to prove something, it's all on this page. The family has something to go back to for when I'm gone and all the family that knew him was gone. Maybe not everybody keeps everything we hand down to the family. They lose track of it. They forget things. This page will now serve as an archive of all the history. They don't have to go and get confused with these ads. Go, so which one of these actors is actually our uncle or our grandfather? None of that has to happen now. We have a family-made archive of history that has been shared with the world. And I think that's important. That's why I get so passionate about this stuff, and I have always been passionate about it since I was commissioned a Kentucky colonel back in 2015. Things just have to be done right. He just should be respected by the brand, and if he can't be respected by the brand, there needs to be an outlet for folks to come learn about the true history. Not all the misinformation or purposely misinterpreted information to confuse folks or to get self-gain for their own things. Also, like impersonators, I don't care, you want to dress like Colonel Sanders, call yourself him, do it. But there's some people that take it way too far, and we talked about them, Miller and a few other impersonators. These guys have told me it's their sole purpose to carry my family legacy and dress as my uncle and make people associate Colonel Sanders' image with them. I don't want my family falling into the trap that I did when I was so gullible to listen to them that they had connections to get me into Kentucky Fried Chicken. I don't want family long after I'm gone to go to these guys or anybody doing something like this, falling into their trap, being used by them for information, being used by them as pawns to better their impersonations or use knowing the family to get into certain places. It's just, things just have to be right. That's all there is to it. The Kentucky Colonels don't get as much respect as they deserve. A lot of people don't know about their history. And the KFC Foundation doesn't get enough respect as they deserve. So I'm hoping in my lifetime while I'm doing this, things like Uncle Harley's story, like the KFC Foundation, like the Kentucky Colonels, is able to go viral through my page. People can see it here. They go right to the pages that I tag so they could go look and see what they're doing in the world today. So I'm hoping in my lifetime I'm able to achieve that for them so that the good news is shared. Here's another thing. Many of you might not be religious, many of you may be. You might all have different religions. I love you all the same. That's how I was raised. I love everybody the same. Uncle Harley was a very strong Christian near the end of his life. He has a very inspiring story of how he went from a very sinful life and turning to God, giving it all to him, and being at peace with them. And the brand doesn't share that. Now, when he represented the brand back when he was alive, all the things he did through that also represented the brand. They never had to put a disclosure saying these are his personal views. They were. Everyone knew they were. But they knew that because the founder was like this and he was still representing the brand, that it must be something good there. So they were inspired to go eat at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'd like my family to remember Uncle Harley for who he was. Yes, he was a cusser. Yes, he had a short temper. Yes, he was a perfectionist, but he was also a very kind person. He was a very loving person, and he had a lot of hardships that he had to overcome to get to where he was. And he wanted his family not to have to go through that, but to know what the value of hard work and working for what you want is. And I don't see anything wrong with that. And if my page didn't exist, or other pages that do carry on the history of him didn't post some of his testimonies, family of mine, when I'm long gone and all the family that knew him is long gone, won't know that story. The brand doesn't use his religious aspect and views in the advertisements. Now, I'm not saying that they should. I'm not one to shove religious views down somebody's throat, but I'm also not one to completely change who the man was. He was true to himself to the very end, and nobody seemed bothered by it. So again, things just have to be done right. If they're going to change who he is, I would request that they put some kind of page somewhere, not just the museums, but something that very publicly shows you want to learn our history, go here. Not just a subtle tab on a website. Just maybe make an advertisement completely separate from the chicken, make an advertisement about the history, advertise those museums to go to, and advertise where to go to learn more about that history. I think that would be a good thing to do. If they're trying to separate the man from the business, which I really wish that they wouldn't and that they don't, but if they were going down that path, or they should in the future, they should do something to preserve that history too. But that's why I do what I do. Because I don't see it happening. I'm not seeing it happening. I'm seeing the museums and the franchisees taking pride in the history and all that good stuff. But on the internet, I'm not seeing a whole lot of things preserving his history. And that's where a lot of the folks are right now. And you can inspire a lot of folks on the internet. It doesn't have to all be negative. It doesn't all have to be nasty, evil things. There could be some good on there too. And even though Uncle Harley is dead, his story is inspiring. And I think that should be advertised a little bit more. Even if it's an ad poking at the history, an advertisement leading up to Colonel Sanders meeting Pete Harmon and handshaking on a nickel for every whole chicken sold in a meal. That's how he started making his living. He got to where he was getting $1,000 a day. They gave him an insight of how these 5 and 10 cent stores handle money, how much a day they get. Because he got a nickel for every whole chicken sold, and he ended up getting $1,000 a day income from selling those chickens for a nickel. Then he sold out for $2 million, and the rest is history there. All right. I talked enough. Ciao.